Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest special edition Ghosts and Spirits video. Well, I did another little mini ghost hunt of sorts, and I'm using that in air quotes as the loosest sense, only because this time around my ghost hunt here in Austin, Texas involved visiting a location known for a very tragic circumstance back in the early 90s, and in the way that this circumstance occurred and the results from it, it is absolutely associated with regards to hauntings in other places. So when you have something very tragic happen, in this case the murder of four young girls, and it happens all pretty much one night instantly, such things seem to have some kind of hauntings. And so I'll talk about that later on, about myself visiting that location, and then you'll see some of the updated photos. So what I'm talking about here has to do with a case that to this day is still open. It's still an open case even after 2 decades or so, and the reason for it is because no one, as far as these murders, has been caught and then prosecuted, successfully prosecuted, and residing in jail. So I'll talk about that too in a minute, with regards to why it's still an open case. But at least with regards to the circumstance, I'm referring to this: the 1991 Austin yogurt shop murders that occurred on December 6th, 1991. They are a murder case that is still very infamous here in Austin area. Ask anyone who's been around Austin for a long time, and they'll probably recall where they were when they first heard about this, because it was a huge, absolutely huge sensation back then. I was really young at the time, so I don't have much knowledge, firsthand at least, when it comes to this set of murders. So, but growing up later on, I heard about it, and then only just recently I finally decided to look at the location, because it was nearby a place I was visiting, and you'll see some updated pictures of that location too. By the way, the location, it used to be in a TCBY. That's why it's called the Austin Yogurt Shop Murders, because TCBY is an ice cream shop of sorts, a yogurt shop of sorts. And that location there, that's where it occurred. It's near Anderson Lane and Mopac, which, if you know the Austin area, you'll know that it's up northwest Austin. So first, let's talk about the very, very tragic circumstance. Again, this occurred on December 6, 1991. These four girls that were there, Amy Ayers, Jennifer Harbison, Sarah Harbison, and then finally Eliza Thomas, they were there at that TCBY very late at night after closing. Now, I don't know, I was trying to see if I could find information why, but I don't know why they were all there 100% at once, like if one of them worked there and then maybe the others were there hanging out. But it seems like the consensus is that they were gonna do like a sleepover of sorts afterward, and that was their initial meeting place. So they were there that night, and then that's where things get mysterious. I was reading some information online, and people to this day still don't, like, there's no definitive concrete evidence of what occurred after the yogurt shop closed. But the way it's stated, and you're looking at some of the pictures of that yogurt shop too, is witnesses claim that they saw like two shifty looking men waiting after the place was closed. Apparently one of them or both of them stated they needed to use the restroom, the employee restroom, and they were allowed. The last person to have seen anything there was apparently some security officer, if I'm not mistaken. And he waited a little bit because he too saw these two shifty looking men, and then wanted to check out and see, if anything else came about. But when they didn't come afterward from behind, then he just let it go and then left. And then apparently a couple, an older couple, also saw these men there, and they were the last set of customers too. What's interesting is that none of these people that were, I guess, witnesses to this stuff, they never really, I guess, were brought forth to trial, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody, if I'm wrong on this, please correct me, but they were not brought forth to trial, and then on top of that, they still remain silent, it seems, to this day, with regards to what they saw. Maybe they're just trying to let it go, or who knows. But also, but that's at least the loosest sense of information tied to that, because anything afterward is considered just pure speculation. But after that place closed, somewhere between then and then a fire, these four girls were rounded up, and then again, just truly, truly tragic, but they were all, I think, raped and then murdered execution style. And whoever did this did so, you're looking at a diagram here, near the very back of that restaurant or the yogurt shop. And when that happened, in order to ensure that there's no evidence of what occurred, that's when they decided to set the place on fire. And you're looking at some pictures now of the location, of the dates of that night when it was on fire. There was some footage of it, I believe, too, from the news channels. Nobody there knew at that time, though, because the fire was blazing, that there was four bodies in the back. But that's when, after that thing was extinguished, that's when they discovered that there was a whole other level of massacre there. So, as far as the actual suspects and what happened, I can't really talk too much about that here, only because these guys, they were eventually released, all of them. So for all intents and purposes, they're considered innocent to this day. You can find the information though online. There's plenty of it there. Four suspects were considered caught sometime in the late 90s up to the early 2000s, and when that happened, only two of them went to court, and they were apparently both found guilty two separate times, but then there was an overturn through some kind of appeals court, because I think there was considered like their rights were violated, something along those lines. And then on top of that, there was complications with regards to the investigation, where one of the suspects had a father that I guess worked in the police department in some way. And then on top of that, there was someone else that was considered, I guess, like an internal person that was having a relationship with someone else known to the suspects. So that also kind of tainted things. But in either case, after so many years, there was failure to match key evidence. I guess the idea was, from what I was reading, there was strong evidence, but not unreasonable doubt evidence. And so with that, including the idea that there was a potentially fifth person, because of the four suspects captured and then two of them went to trial, evidence apparently was presented that showcased yet another mysterious person. And so with all that being said, it seems like the Austin people, the attorneys, decided to go ahead and drop everything, because I guess it was getting too loose when it comes to presenting a conviction. And so to this day, though, the official stance from the Austin attorneys is that they had the suspects, they consider it at least, but they had to let things go because of the evidence and all the other factors that I mentioned. But to this day, there's nothing else in terms of other people that have been presented, but it is considered 100% open case. As far back as just a few years ago, there are still 5 detectives here in Austin working that case. Now, as far as myself visiting that location, I was nearby another area, and it dawned on me that I had read about these murders and about that location, and because of one specific thing. For starters, this is the picture of the place. Now, for privacy purposes, I had to hide. You'll see a lot of blacked out boxes of the location, only because I would imagine this place, it doesn't really want to state that they are home to these gruesome set of murders. But this place is still there. Like, that actual location is still there. It's a strip mall area of sorts, and when you go there, doesn't really stand out. So if you don't have any knowledge of the history associated with that location, it would just be another strip mall. But it is absolutely still there to this day, still standing. And so I can only imagine, as I was saying earlier, when it comes to things being tied to a loose way to like a haunting, I've chronicled how whenever you have a situation where there's a gruesome set of circumstances, generally there's either residual hauntings, like people seem to see something, apparitions of some sort that live their last moments, or people actually see something else, like they see a ghost or a spirit of some sort standing there or trying to communicate, something that essentially was cut short on their life, and they want other people to know about that. And in this case, there's no greater example of it because of these four young girls essentially all being brutally murdered right there in the back area of that location. So I'd be interested to hear if anyone has had any kind of haunting experiences there. I can only imagine what it's like if you go there, especially at night. Let's say you're one of the employees working there, if people still feel, hear, see anything when it comes to that stuff. And the other reason I went there to that location is because outside you're looking at this is a plaque that was set up. I don't know who set it up, but somebody placed it there, a group probably did, commemorating the four girls, and again, pretty much stating that they will never be forgotten. Whatever occurred that night, even after 2 decades plus, it's still a place that people still remember. I'll be fascinating to see if something does happen later on. You hear about these things where eventually, when something is considered a cold case, the way my understanding is, detectives that get assigned on these, whenever that happens, they periodically go and then redo things. Like they start asking questions again, they start interrogating maybe people again, they start finding evidence again, start asking other questions to people that knew this kind of stuff, either to try to, I guess, see if someone will crack at that point. Maybe the guilt is tied to them and they realize, they can't continue with just lying. Who knows? But it'll be fascinating to see if later on something comes about with this particular case and if there's any kind of conviction. It almost, this case too almost took on what was it called, the murders, the one involving the three guys. There's a fascinating book about it called The Devil's Knot, and it had to do with those three guys that were convicted or considered guilty of murdering a small group of boys there in a wooded forest, but they were eventually, like, they took on a huge, I guess, following of sorts, with people stating, nope, this wasn't them. They were considered innocent only because West Memphis Street, that's right, that's what they were called. So it seems like this was such a case with these four guys, and then the two guys that went to court. There was a large list of people that were trying to make sure that they were just considered innocent, like they were dragged into this. Who knows? I'm sure there's a lot more information related to it as far as proving either their innocence or their guilt. I'm just presenting what I can here. So, but yes, it almost took on that level of infamy here in the Austin area as much as the West Memphis 3. So, anyways, if anyone has any more information related to this gruesome murder, it'd be great to hear at least any more comments. If anyone was here in Austin, especially during that time, and has a good first-hand knowledge of what it was like whenever that occurred, like from a community standpoint, that would be great to hear too. So, all right, everybody, thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.
Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Gruesome and Grotesque news video. For this video, I wanted to talk about a topic, something that I've actually mentioned before in a past video. This one talking about something that went through a solemn anniversary just this month. In fact, it's been 30 years since this unsolved quadruple homicide occurred here in the city of Austin, Texas. Definitely something that to this day many of the older Austinites remember. Many of the younger ones are finding out for the first time. It is absolutely the case that has the most bearing when it comes to Austin shifting towards another reality. As been often mentioned, this is the case, this is the incident, the very tragic incident that caused Austin to quote-unquote grow up. Like, in other words, a lot of things that were happening in other parts of the country, a lot of things that people would always think it's happening only over there, never here. Well, in 1991, it absolutely occurred here. And it definitely left an unfortunate, very sad, and tragic mark. And of course, I'm talking about the 1991 Austin Yogurt Shop murders. So let's go ahead and let's talk about some of that information here. Again, it's going through its 30th anniversary just this month. And I'll include the link below for the original video that I did maybe about 5 or so years ago. It goes to show that every single time that there's a solemn anniversary for this occurrence, people are still going to talk and feature about it because there's still a lot of mystery associated with it. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. So this all occurred on Friday, December 6, 1991, there at a location up north Austin that used to be, I can't believe it's yogurt shop. In fact, this was some place that I visited for my last video. Again, I'll include the link below in case you haven't seen it. But I went there because I wanted to pay tribute to the four poor souls that ended up dying there on that fateful night. You can go there actually to this very day, and I believe it's today a nail salon, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody might have to correct me on this. It's been since the last time I was there when I did my video. It's been those couple of years since I visited. But yes, if you go there and you go outside, you'll see actually a plaque associated with those four poor souls, those four young women, and what happened to them. In fact, just the other week, when the 30th anniversary was happening, there were reports, and I was watching it online on the news, there were reports of people outside, a small group, in other words, not too big, but not too small at the same time, who were there visiting, paying tribute to these four women. So their names were Amy Ayers, who was 13 years old at the time, Eliza Thomas, who was 17, and then Jennifer Harbison, and then, who was 17 as well, and then her sister, Sarah Harbison, who was 15. They were there at the time because two of them, Jennifer and Eliza, happened to be employees at the shop, and then Sarah was there with her friend Amy because they were all going to get a ride afterward. What makes this case so frustrating is because there is a set of eyewitnesses to what occurred. Like, in other words, right before this very horrific act happened, there were people there up to the last minute, just, either before or after closing at 11 p.m. that saw what could be the perpetrators themselves. And in fact, so much frustrating evidence points to them being there, but it's, for lack of better proof, like 100% smoking gun evidence. It's the idea that you have to have the preponderance of evidence in court to make sure that somebody is 100% guilty. And even though there were eyewitnesses, to this day, nobody can pinpoint with 100% surety who they are, or at least in a courtroom, they can't pinpoint with DNA evidence and other type of physical evidence that the people were there. That's what makes it so frustrating because, for example, just before the place closed up at 11 o'clock p.m., that's when a man was discovered there to have used the bathroom in the back. This was just before closing, and it's been theorized that he was one of the perpetrators because there in the back in the area for the restroom, he stayed well past closing, and he may have been the one that actually kept a rear door open to ensure that the attack could happen either with himself having an easy escape or having others being able to come into the back and then also do the attack itself. And then also customers stated that yes, they saw a couple that left the shop just before 11 p.m. saw two people sitting by a table there at the, I can't believe it's yogurt shop, just sitting around, but they were acting very fidgety, like they knew something was weird about them. Like they weren't there just having ice cream, having yogurt. It's like they had something else on their mind, but it just hadn't happened just yet. So those people, the ones that were in the line that saw this man go back to the bathroom, and then the other couple that saw these other two people there sitting at the table just acting strangely, they have been the closest possible to being witnesses to the actual perpetrators, the ones that did this type of crime. Again, there's a chance it could not be these guys because who knows, someone else may have entered well after the store was closed and the employees there and the friends were help cleaning up the place. But just logic dictates that what were those guys doing there as far as the table? What were the guy doing there in the back, in the bathroom after it was closing? It just seems to point more towards them being the perpetrators. And like I mentioned in the past video, I can't really mention their names here because several of them were tried and I believe retried or going to be retried. They were initially found guilty, but then it was released. Like in other words, the case was overturned, and then when they were going to be retried, it was stopped, and there was alternative suspects that were brought on board, but eventually evidence, like in terms of DNA evidence, and then also confessions, false confessions, in other words, the idea of coercion being involved, or other confessions that weren't following legal guidelines. All of that stuff played a mixture when it came to the people closest to being the actual perpetrators, the actual suspects themselves, not being found guilty. That's what makes it so frustrating, because it's so close to having the truth, to having the actual notion of who these people were, and then facing punishment for it, but being so close but so far away when it comes to things being overturned, and then others not having a retrial. There's even a chance that those people weren't even the perpetrators themselves, but that they in turn were innocent, and then the real perpetrators are still out there somewhere waiting to be found. The notion on this is the fact that a perpetrator DNA match has been found by the FBI, but this is apparently not being released, at least until, I guess, more evidence is linked to it, or some other type of DNA fragment points more towards the identity of this man, just because there's too many people that share this DNA as well. But yes, as far as the actual act itself, I'm just going to highlight it. It's gruesome and it's very tragic, but I'll just highlight just a brief portion of it. It stated that shortly after, it would have been somewhere after 11 p.m., but before 12 p.m., that's when this happened. That's when whoever this perpetrator or perpetrators were, plural, they in turn locked up when the place was locked, they were there inside that store, that I can't believe it's yogurt shop, with these four girls. They ended up bounding all of them together. Some of them using like makeshift bounds, like with socks, others using actual underwear for the actual bounding as well. They were all found nude. They were found raped as well. But the most gruesome part on it is that they were all executed in the head with a .22 caliber gun. So it was just basically just all lined up and then shot after they were raped, in other words, and then they were piled on top of each other there within the store. And then with the use, and it's been theorized, with some form of an accelerant, that's when the entire place was burned down to try to trace away any evidence associated with the perpetrators. And where things really take a more horrible turn is this. One of the poor victims, Amy, was actually thought to have survived and pulled herself away from this wreckage before she too succumbed either to her injuries or to the very, very severe burns. And this is because the actual bullet itself ended up not killing her. It missed part of her brain, or missed her brain entirely, but it still caused severe head damage. And so here she was crawling out from the bodies themselves of her friends, sisters, and so on. And then there she was trying to get away, but as much as she could, she just eventually succumbed right there in that spot, all around the fire, because of her injuries. And then the fire took care of the rest of it. Just all around, just real horrible when you think about it, that these were the last moments associated with these four poor young women. Two of them they're working, two of them as friends. They are just trying to get by that night. And then whoever these horrible people were decided to end them in this very gruesome fashion. Just again, this is why it caused Austin to quote unquote grow up, because these are the type of crimes that people thought does not happen in Austin, at least back in the 90s. This was something that was happening to much larger cities elsewhere, and now it all of a sudden was occurring here. And every single time, again, there's a solemn anniversary, it brings up the idea of, will there ever be evidence, something pointing towards investigations showcasing who these perpetrators were and getting them convicted and then getting them the punishment that they deserve. Unfortunately, 30 years have passed now. The more passage of time means that there's going to be less and less chance that something like that happens. In fact, one of the supposed perpetrators actually is already dead. Back in 2010, a police officer was conducting a traffic stop, And when this person started to struggle with the police officer, they actually took out a knife, stabbed the police officer, and the police officer retaliated by pulling out a gun and shooting them. So if you believe the notion that one of the perpetrators was there that night, and they were the ones that I just mentioned that had this encounter with this police officer, then at least then you have something as far as some finality there. But who knows again, because at the end of the day, this is still an active investigation. It is actually still active here in the Austin area. Maybe the DNA technology will have something one day pointing towards who these people were. I talk about those cases here on this channel periodically where many years later, a person is found as being the perpetrator themselves, but they're long dead. And that means that while they escaped punishments because from their act, at least there's some finality as to who carried out this crime. And so there's the idea that that could still happen sometime soon, where there's going to be a breakthrough set of evidence, or somebody comes forward and confesses, and then they'll be able to have this. It's frustrating though, because again, the main people that are considered the ones that committed this crime, most of them are out there free. And the notion is that maybe they are innocent, maybe they aren't, but at least right now, at this day, it causes a lot of mysteriousness and frustration with this case because of the horrific nature involved and the idea that nobody has been found guilty on it just yet. But yeah, just wanted to talk about that. 30 years solemn anniversary when it comes to the 1991 Austin Yogurt Shop murders. Check out the link below again if you haven't had a chance to see my earlier video. I plan on doing another visit to this place sometime soon to again pay tribute to the poor four victims, and then I'll probably do a live stream from there. So be on the lookout for that sometime soon too. But if anybody has any more comments, anything else I might have missed, then please post them below. What about those of you that happened to be in the Austin area when this occurred? I was near Austin, but I was really, really young at the time, like super young. So all of this would have just passed by me at the time. But if anybody has a more personal experience when this first occurred, then please post those comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye. All right, everyone. This is Fernando doing a special Ghost and Spirits video here at a place that I promised I was going to come back to. It just unfortunately had its 30th anniversary. I say unfortunate because it's a very tragic occurrence, and that was right here. That was the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt Shop murders. These were the infamous murders that occurred here 30 years ago in Austin, and to this day people are still wondering who the suspects were. There's a lot of info on maybe how it happened, but still no answers as to who the suspects were. But this is where it occurred 30 years ago. In fact, you can kind of see someone in here. There it is. 30 years ago, that's where those four poor young women came in. 2 of them were sisters. 2 of them were friends. Some of them were working here. They were in here. You see the left where the chairs are? So this area in the front, and then the left was the chairs, tables and chairs where customers sat. And the suspects, 2 of them, were believed, according to witnesses, to have been on the left side. And then towards the right, there would have been a bathroom area where one of the suspects is believed to have been holed up until after closing. Again, based on witnesses, because there was a line after closing of people waiting, customers, and they were the ones that stated that info. And then towards the back, where you see that entranceway, that's where the kitchen area was, the staff area was, and then that's where they were unfortunately rounded up and then killed afterward. And then their bodies placed into one single stack and then burned just to make sure that there was no evidence. Horrible stuff. But this is where it happened 30 years ago. That infamous night, the night that changed Austin, the night that people say broke Austin's innocence, because a lot of this stuff only happened in other towns, bigger towns, but now it was happening here. And the suspects would have either come in through the front right here, 2 of them. The one that was in the bathroom is suspected to have opened the door somewhere in the back way over there, like the back entrance, to allow others to come in, or maybe they were there the whole time. But yeah, they would have come in somewhere around here and then visited, and then they would have escaped either in the back. Probably not going to walk towards the back, but I remember seeing a grainy stock footage showcasing two people that were back there that were rumored to be the suspects, or they could have escaped out here in the front. And then if you go over here, look at what you see. This has been updated. This has been changed too. This is the memorial, the plaque dedicated to those 4 young women. There you have Amy Ayers, Sarah Harbison, Jennifer Harbison. Again, those were the sisters, and then Eliza Thomas. So just about maybe 2 weeks ago, again in the 30th anniversary, there was a kind of group of people here, maybe about a dozen or so. They were here paying tribute, solemn tribute to the young women. This has been updated too. Last time I was here was 5 years ago, and it looks like people just care about them a lot, because this, as I'm updated, this is more newer. The plaque looks more newer too, and it looks just slightly larger than before. And you can see these are new too, recent. They're withering away, but still they're recent. And here you have someone that posted this. Let's see if there's a note. No note. But still, they posted this here for the souls of the poor young women tragically murdered 30 years ago, and the suspects have never ever been found. Now there was 4 that I chronicled in one of my videos, and I'll include the link for it below. People that were considered as suspects and arrested, but ultimately the evidence freed them, and nobody knows. And to this day, it's considered an open and active case. It is indeed open and active. So maybe it'll be solved one day, maybe not. But this is where you have to go. You have to go to 2947, somewhere here in the Anderson Lane area, and then that's where you'll find this infamous shop. Crazy stuff, right? Amazing how this tragic event, like, just, it blew people's mind back then. Like, nobody would suspect something like this could have happened here in Austin, especially to 4 young women, but it did. Hopefully one day those gruesome people, whoever they are, their punishment will happen and there'll be some finality to it. But in the meantime, at least we have this solemn place, and then we have the plaque associated with it right there. Now, I have heard too, one last thing, that people have tried to investigate, because there are, with what happened with these poor young women, reports of ghostly activity happening in here, but that the current owners don't want anything to do with it. Like, they just don't want any investigations done, nothing after hours, stuff like that. So who knows, maybe if you want to try, even I was reading an article where someone was trying to even take pictures from the inside after closing, but they weren't allowed in the back area for it. So, but all right, everyone, again, solemn situation. Can't believe it's yogurt. 30th anniversary, the murders that occurred with those young women, and definitely a place, if you're here in Austin, I highly recommend visiting, paying tribute, and then that way you'll be able to make sure that, yes, these 4 young women are never ever forgotten. Not that they'll ever be. 30 years later, people are still talking about this situation, but definitely if you're in the Austin area, it's good to pay tribute. All right, everyone, talk to you later. Take care. Bye. Alright, everyone, this is Fernando, continuing doing a quick video on the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt murders. The reason I'm back here is because I believe this is the actual back way, either this door or that one, for the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop back then 30 years ago. And the rumor, or the suspected situation, is this: whoever those suspects were, and presumably it was the one that was hidden in the bathroom until after closing, they in turn went back here, propped it open, and then allowed whoever was waiting back here from the murderers to then go back in. So this is the actual spot. If it's not this door, then it's this one right here. This is the actual door. So one of these two, you would have had the suspects just waiting in the corner here, waiting for their pal to open this door, push it open, and then that would have happened. And the reason why that person would have been back here is because the bathroom area for the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop, they, according to the diagrams I saw, it would have been an employee bathroom area in the back, not for the public. So that back area would have been over here, and it would have easily allowed that person to come out here and then open the door and then let them walk in. And then after they did their gruesome act and then burned the bodies, they would have presumably come out the same back area here. In fact, it's kind of hard to tell, but there was a very grainy stock image that showed two guys that looked like they were standing somewhere over here. So there would have been a camera somewhere in this location that would have captured those two guys just standing. Kind of creepy, like in the exact spot that I'm standing at. That's where potentially these guys were 30 years ago, after, either before or after the heinous murders were done. They were in this spot. It was just craziness. And if they weren't in this spot, they would have easily come out from this area. They would have walked to this spot right here. 30 years ago, these sons of bitches would have been walking this exact spot. From here to here, going over there, and then escaping, and never to be seen again. Hopefully, they'll be found. Hopefully, they'll be punished. And bring some finality to what happened to these poor young women. But yeah, just wanted to show this, mainly because I've never seen it chronicled anywhere else as far as the exact location of where these suspects, these murderers, were. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Alright everyone, talk to you later. Take care.